Good morning, baseball fans, and welcome back to Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. Do not be fooled by that fancy name. It's just me and some friends talking about baseball cards. And today we're talking about the cards of a player who you may never have heard of, but you should have. If you are a regular viewer of this channel, you know that I have shown cards of this player. Benny Kauff was a left-handed outfielder who was the star of the Federal League and then came in and played for the Giants. He's got a sordid past and a crazy story, but my guest and I guess maybe are two of the very few people on this planet who collect Benny Kauff cards. So I've got a few and he's got more, so we're going to go through the cards. The interesting part of the cards, of course, is that he's in from 1915 to the late 1915 to the early 20s, and he gets a few few of those sets that you don't see much of. But anyway, let me bring in my guest, who is Trae. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning. Doing good. Thanks for having me. I feel like we've been going back and forth about doing this for a while, so glad we finally got a time together.
Well, the thing that you did, one of the things that I really encourage other viewers to do, which is to comment about a player that shows up in like one of my grading reveals or whatever, or pickup videos, and then contact me and say, hey, like, I have a big collection of this guy, you want to talk? And of course it worked out. So this has happened before, which is fantastic. Always like to make new friends and see new collections. So I really do appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I always ask my guests basically, your collecting story, how you got into cards, and then ultimately how you got into this particular player.
Yeah, so I mean, I think probably my history is probably not too dissimilar from other people my age. So I'm 39, about to be 40. I collected as a kid, like in the mid to late 90s, and then just got out of it and then got back into it during the pandemic, really. And kind of started off, I feel like probably like a lot of people do, is I was doing some modern stuff and then just kind of quickly went into doing vintage stuff. And, typically kind of more off the beaten path vintage stuff that a lot of people aren't really looking for. I think financially, those guys are a little bit more affordable for somebody in my position. So, but yeah, with getting into Benny Kauff, that was really, I am a part of a group that does, it's kind of weird, but historical baseball rosters for the MLB The Show baseball game. So we do like roster recreations so you can play them in the game and stuff like that. And we did one for the 1915 season. And that was like my first introduction to just seeing the name and doing a little bit of research. And I'm sure we're going to go over the story and the history and all that. But yeah, just like really loved his story and started looking into his stuff. And obviously it's not the easiest to find a lot of it. So, my collecting a lot of the times is I really enjoy looking for stuff. Having stuff is great, but I enjoy having to try to find stuff. So that really appealed to me.
Well, that is a great job, having to compile baseball rosters. Where do I send my resume?
Hey, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you. I'll shoot you a link to one of them. We've done a lot of good little projects. Like we've done one for 1927, 1915, right after World War II. I think it's like 47 to 49. But yeah, it's fun to. It's a lot of work, but when you get done, it's cool just to see basically that season come to life. We have guys that like they'll recreate stadiums completely accurately. So even like defunct stadiums that have been demolished forever, they'll look up schematics and go off old pictures. And yeah, it's pretty interesting.
That is totally fascinating. I love that. Well, my sons are, like in their 20s now, but they played a lot of video games. So I saw the progression of video games over like a 10-year period. So I do, acknowledge and respect that there's a lot of work that goes into it. So good for you. But when it comes to baseball, I'm like most fans of pre-war baseball, like kind of a stickler for facts. So you guys, putting all that effort in, it's like, going to Baseball Reference to me is like, I'm awed by the amount of work that goes into this and, what it provides to fans like me. and we'll see Baseball Reference in a couple of seconds. But the funny
And
thing
I would be remiss to not say the name of that group. But if you want to check it out, it's on all social media stuff. ATG Baseball. If you want to look into any of those projects,
I will link to it in the description when the video posts. So the good thing about Kauff is that now that you and I have connected, we know not to bid against each other in auctions.
I was gonna say we briefly hit on this before we started recording, but one of the cards we will look at that we both have, I'm pretty sure I almost bid against you on because I was looking at picking up another one when I think you got yours. So I'm glad I decided not to.
In fact, my guess, and we'll see, it's the Fleischman card.
Yeah.
Right. My guess is that I think I did like a acquisition video for that one, and I showed it off, and I think that's one of the videos that you commented on, which would be the connection. So it's funny because one of my friends, Aaron, from Value Vintage, went on his show yesterday and talked about his Sisler cards and referenced people reaching out to him about the REA auction, which included me reaching out to him. And he said, well, I'm not bidding on that. I have it already. So go for it. This is the price. So it was like really helpful. So this is like one of my new cool things about the hobby is being able to like communicate with other collectors of a particular player and make sure that you don't beat each other up in auctions. So anyway, so Benny Kauff, I'm fascinated with him, and part of the reason that I started collecting him is because I'm fascinated with the Federal League, and he was pretty much the best player in the Federal League for 2 seasons. I mean, won both batting titles, and his year in Indianapolis is amazing. But I started looking for his cards, and like you said, they're really hard to find, and I didn't discover. I'm discovering them bit by bit. So anyway, let's talk about him a little bit. I'll bring up the. Speaking of Baseball Reference, the Benny Kauff page is not long, but for a guy who only played eight full seasons to have a 29 WAR is pretty damn good. So he's a kid from Ohio who grows up and ultimately becomes a baseball player out there, gets scouted and gets brought to the East Coast where he is signed and plays in the minor leagues for the Highlanders, i.e. the Yankees. Spends a couple of years in the minor leagues, and he's the kind of personality that tells all of his managers and owners and stuff that he's so good that he should go up to the major leagues. So, but that kind of confidence actually paid off for him because he goes on, when the Federal League is established, he goes out to Indianapolis and signs up with the Federal League and has an amazing first season there. So he's born in 1890. His debut is 1912. It's a cup of coffee with the Yankees. And then so let's pull up the stats. He shows up in 12 with the Yankees, but then in 14 with Indianapolis, he has the season where he leads the Federal League in WAR, runs, hits, doubles, stolen bases, batting average, on-base percentage, OPS, everything. Yeah, I mean, pretty much it's black ink across the line. So how do you, I mean, in your study of this guy, how do you explain him going from just being a minor leaguer to being literally the best player in an entire Major League Baseball league?
I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I would have a hard time explaining it, especially because when you look at it, I mean, it's not that he was like a flash in the pan, that he was never good after the Federal League, but I think like he was never really, I mean, he was productive after that when he went, to the Giants, but he was never that good again. And some of that could be, the competition that he is playing against there. But yeah, I mean, those 2 years, I mean, you can see like, basically almost an 8 WAR season and almost a 7 WAR season. And then after that, I mean, I think with the Giants, a productive player, but especially toward the end, he's like 1 WAR, 2 WAR, and then I'm sure we'll get to, a short overall career for a couple of reasons.
Yeah. So what's cool about him, well, not cool, but it sort of ends up, I think, making him a target, is that he becomes this sort of mythic figure, and he plays it up to the point where when he signs with the Giants, he shows up and says, I'm this, I'm that. He's wearing furs and jewelry, and he's just like, he's basically, fully played this sort of, I guess, an earlier version of sports figures from our era who like to,
Yeah.
go on TV and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But he ended up playing his second year for Brooklyn, which is part of the reason I'm also kind of fascinated with him, is this Brooklyn Tip Tops team that existed for 2 seasons and played over in Washington Park down in Brooklyn. It's a section that I'm actually familiar with, and I've driven by where the stadium is. I've never taken there's a plaque there. I've never taken a photograph of that. It's one of my things I should do. So anyway, he goes to Indian. The Federal League is having some financial problems. I think the Indianapolis team folded or moved to a different, maybe Newark, I think.
I think that's right.
He ends up in Brooklyn, playing for the Tip Tops for 15, wins the batting title that year too. And then when the Federal League folds, he becomes a free agent and signs with the Giants. And like you said, his numbers in New York are decent, but they're not, they're not the level that he was at. He does have 2 300 seasons. And then what happens is, of course, he ends up, because he's sort of a personality and flashy, and he's got his hands in a lot of different cookie jars. He opens up, I guess, some sort of automotive shop in New York, and gets arrested and charged, along with a bunch of other people, with possession of stolen property, because his auto parts store is working on stolen cars and selling them off to people. So, in your looking into that, what did you think? I mean, what do you think is like going on there? I mean, is he just like an absentee owner, or does this guy know that like they're trafficking in stolen goods?
I mean, I think that if he was involved, I feel like it's probably on the periphery of any wrongdoing, just because, I mean, when he ended up going to trial for that, I mean, he was acquitted. So obviously there wasn't enough evidence to put him in jail for it. But I did just want to say, I think for me personally, when I look at like stuff I collect, like I'm a sucker for like just a really kind of crazy story. And I think like all the stuff you mentioned about, he got arrested for, Grand Theft Auto and wearing minks and furs in New York and like being a brass, like all that stuff, just like that hooks me. Cause especially in the, the early 1920s, late, 19s right there. You just nobody did that. It was just such a much different time. And I know the guy that wrote his SABR bio, I wish I could remember his name so I could give him credit, but I think he refers to him as like, cause I know Kauff's nickname was like the Ty Cobb of the Federal League.
Yeah.
Just because of his dominance. And the guy in the SABR bio actually calls him the Deion Sanders of the Federal League, just because of that attitude. And I just love that. But yeah, on the car stuff, I think probably he knew maybe something was going on, or maybe just didn't want to know what was going on. But I think, in the end, that was enough to get him ousted from being able to play. So.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few things cutting against him. I think he brought himself out as sort of a target because of his personality. And then at the trial, he is acquitted, as you mentioned. He's found not guilty, and he thinks he's going right back into baseball. But at the trial, 2 of the people who worked for him testified against him. As what could be colloquially known as snitches. And these are like not cool dudes. These are like, basically career criminal guys working for him. So Landis, you got acquitted, but you shouldn't be hanging out with these like, these ne'er-do-wells. And ultimately that's the reason why he gets suspended. But timing wise, he not suspended, banned. He's playing mid 1920s season, which would be about the worst time to be in trouble in Major League Baseball, because the whole Black Sox thing, he's happening in the shadow of that, and Landis is sort of trying to clean up the game. And cleaning up the game means getting rid of a guy who hangs out with ne'er-do-wells.
Yeah, and I think at that time too, like you're saying, like you don't necessarily have to be a criminal at that time, but like association with people that are, whether that's gamblers, especially like you said around that time, or really anything, I think you were running the risk of just by being a known associate of people that are doing that kind of stuff with what was going on, you're putting yourself at pretty big risk.
Yeah. And so he lives out his life. He moves back to Ohio. He lives out his life. He's pretty much, a model citizen after that. Gets married, has kids. And then I think he lives to, we'll go back to the screen, but I think he lives to about the age of 70 or so. Yeah, it's 1961. So he died about 71 years old. So he doesn't go back into, the limelight, but he doesn't also he's not one of those guys who dies a penniless and, a drunk or whatever. He was pretty much a regular model citizen for the rest of his life. And, it's sad because the guy was a decent player. Was he a Hall of Famer? I don't know. I mean, if you look at it, the war, he's fallen off a little bit there, but, a couple more seasons with 4 WAR and 5 WAR, he's approaching that kind of those kind of numbers, but it was not to be. So this is a baseball card channel, and we have baseball cards. Like I said in the intro, you and I are probably two of the very few people collecting Kauff. But I feel like these are the first 2 cards. These are we start off with my cards, and then you end up blowing me away. So
I don't know about that.
A little bit of better collection. But I actually picked up this Cracker Jack card a week ago, literally a week ago.
Great timing. Great timing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we had set up this show, I don't know, more than a month ago, and this card just kind of happened to be there. And Stan Locke, who's a dealer out of Ohio, who we see at all the shows, major guy and terrific guy. He's always got tons of Cracker Jack, and I'm working on the Braves Cracker Jack team. I've got 9 of the 14 players, and but I saw the Kauff, and I'm like, oh, I've never seen that before for sale at a show, because it's a high number, and the pop counts are lower than cards in that that kind of a player who's got some notoriety, but is not a Hall of Famer certainly, or a superstar. But he cut me a pretty good deal for a card that's, it's a 2, but like most Cracker Jacks, it's got a little bit of staining on it, but it's nicely centered, presents really well. Hello?
Yeah. Sorry. It was freezing a little bit on my end. Yeah. I mean, I lucky really that you saw it in a show. I don't have great access to shows where I'm in, like I mentioned before, in Arkansas. So, usually I do the Dallas show from time to time. I need to get over and do like the Nashville show at some point. But yeah, most of my buying is online, which is, hit or miss on a lot of stuff too. But yeah, same thing. Like I know for the one that I have, which we'll see in a little bit, like I hardly ever see them pop up. The ones I have seen have just been unaffordable because they've been higher grade. But yeah, the one I have, I think it's a 1. But for something like that, I would have taken basically anything that I could find anyway. So
yeah, I mean, when you're in these kinds of sets, you're gonna go. The highest you're ever gonna see. I think I got a 3 in one of these cards, but it doesn't matter for the most part. It's really all about the eye appeal. And for Cracker Jacks, like you said, when you get up into the mid grade, you're talking comic cards for even the most obscure guy. And to me, getting this in a very presentable 2. Stan said he graded it himself. It's a serial number that begins with 7, so it's probably like graded in like 22, maybe even 23. So it's a nice example that, like I said, I think I paid a fair price for. On the right is the Collins McCarthy from 17. So just a second. The other great thing about this card is that it says Federal League on it, Indianapolis Federal. So
I do like that.
That to me is exactly what makes it attractive. And also, it's a rookie card. It's his first card he's got, and I'll show it later on. The trading card database has a good page for him. he's got like a sporting, like a sports newspaper thing, but it dates over a long period of time. And I think the two that came out for him was 16 and 17. So this is his only card that he has in any issue in 15, which is cool also. And then I guess I have a 7. I know you have some 16s, which is good. The Collins McCarthy is a 17. And so I also did the backs on these. I think I got that at maybe Love of the Game auctions a few auctions ago. But I have a couple of Collins McCarthy cards, and I love the, they're typical of that era, but I love the back.
Yeah.
It's like, what does it say? 200 pictures comprising baseball's Hall of Fame. I'm like, what Hall of Fame?
Yeah, just their Hall of Fame, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. Collins McCarthy Candy Company, San Francisco, California. They also make Z-Nut. So I think it's the same company that made the minor league Pacific Coast League Z-Nut cards, which is cool. And then on the left is the back for the 15 Cracker Jack, and the reason why that slab is upside down is because they reversed the on those. So have one other slide with my cards. That is the Fleischmann. So I bid on this. I don't remember which auction house it was. It might have been Sterling. I forget which auction house it was, but I bid on this, and it was advertised as the Pop 1 because in the SGC Pop report there's one with a tab and one without a tab, and this is the Fleischmann's without a tab.
Yeah.
So there's a total population of 2 of these cards in the SGC, and I checked the PSA last night, has a total population of 3. So of the 5 known graded copies of this card on the planet, you and I own 40% of those.
Yeah, I mean, that set in general is just so hard. I mean, I think I looked at the PSA pop this morning trying to refresh my memory. And I mean, I think they have like, of that whole set, 98 cards of everybody. Yeah. So yeah, it's super hard to find. And I've got a visual aid to show whenever we do mine that'll kind of expand on that.
Yeah, we're on my last slide, so we'll get into that. But the only thing about Fleischmann is that I guess it was Fleischmann's Bakery and Ferguson Bakery. Mm-hmm. Ferguson's even more difficult to find. I don't even know if I've seen a Ferguson Bakery card. And the other thing is that these were, I guess they were printed, the bottom of it says printed in St. Joseph, Michigan, an area that I'm familiar with. But I believe Fleischmann's was out of New York, and Ferguson.
I think so. I think that's right.
Yeah, and it's like you cut the tab off and you mail in and you win something. The backs are blank, but it's a great picture. I mean, it's a real picture. I think somebody made a reference to this recently, talking about Fleischmann's, where they're like one of the few pictures from this era where it's a lot of it is like on the right, where it's more sort of artistic renditions.
Yeah, and too, I'm usually not a huge fan of, say, like oversized cards, let's say, just larger format ones. But for some reason, I just really like these. I think it's just because they're all portraits, and they're all actual picture portraits, like you said, which is not something that you see a ton of from just that time period.
And then the strip card on the right, which actually, I'm not a big strip card guy, but like when the art is pretty good, and like the red on this card totally pops, and it's like I actually like this card a lot. I bought a lot on REA auctions about 3 years ago of about 30 raw 514s. This is it's 1919 to 1921 W514, and I got a pretty good price on it. It was a lot of money. It was like $600 or something, but I graded like 75% of them, and I ended up making like doubling my money.
I'm sure.
But you buy a lot, you keep the cards you want, you sell off the rest for what you paid for the lot, or in this case, quite a bit more. So I graded this myself, and I actually had 2 Kauffs, and they both graded 3s, and I sold one of them, and this one I kept because this was a little bit better than the one that I sold, but they were both 3s. Which is a pretty high grade for this, generally speaking, for a hand cut card. So really happy to have this one. Let me pull out a little bit. I think I might have shown this on the channel a while back. But I mean, this is a really nice for a a hand cut strip card, a really nice card, and I'm happy to have it. And this was my first Benny Kauff card, so.
Yeah, and too, like those strip cards are hit or miss. Like some of them are like, I think that one's great because, like you said, the red on it. Most of the ones I've seen, the red's still super vibrant and really looks good. But like, and some of those strip cards are rough. Like I know when we look at the trading card database, I think there's a picture of one. I can't remember. It's some strip card of him. It looks like his face is melted. Like it's just not a good looking card at all.
Well, in that lot that I bought, I'd say the 25% of the cards that I didn't grade were not, they were cut weird, or they were missing pieces or whatever. So that's always going to be an issue. So it was the best ones. But for an entire lot of them to have like 3/4 of them gradable, it was really quite a good one. There was a Sisler in there. There was a Sam Crawford. Some good Hall of Famers from that era.
And too, like, I mean, if that's one thing too that a lot of, like I was saying, financially, some of the bigger people from that era like are just out of, like, Ty Cobb's a little bit out of my price range, but like you can get like big stars from that era in those strip cards, and they're not overly expensive. So that's, I mean, if you're looking to get into some bigger people from the dead ball era, like that's a great avenue to do it, just because they're not going to be as expensive as some of the big dollar stuff that's out there.
Absolutely, good point. So you did give me the money shot, which we'll get into the individual cards themselves. But what is the item in the middle there?
Yeah, so that's a newspaper. So it is a single sheet of a newspaper from I believe it's the St. Louis Globe Dispatch, if I'm not mistaken. But it's basically talking about base stealing. So talking about two of the best base stealers. So on the left is Benny Kauff. He's in his tip-top uniform. And then on the right is, I believe it's Vic Sayer, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's how you say his last name. Yeah, it's just like a little newspaper. Not little, it's big. I mean, as you comparison to the cards, it's, a full newspaper sheet of these two guys. Just kind of, and it was at the time in color. It's faded a good bit now, but you can still see some of the color. But yeah, I honestly, it's been so long ago, I don't remember the exact situation, but I saw that on eBay randomly. I have like a save search for Benny Kauff. It popped up, and it wasn't expensive at all. And I was like, I'm just going to get that. And I've been meaning to get it framed, and I haven't. I'm slacking, but yeah, it's a cool little. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, like, it's like I said, not expensive. A lot of that stuff, a lot of the newspaper cut stuff, and sporting news excerpts and things like that. A lot of that stuff's not very expensive, and like something like that, I was like, man, that would just look cool just to frame up and put on the wall. It's 115 years old or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, that does have. Well, it's got a little of the patina around the edges, but
it's very much falling apart. It is right on the edge of completely falling apart.
Well, there's your motivation to frame it. But yeah, that is a great piece, and I guess that's Kauff on the left, who was, of course, a left-handed hitter and was not a big man either.
No.
Yeah, there's I was looking for pictures of him. When I was looking for pictures of him in like the furs and the fancy, but I couldn't find anything. But there is a picture of him with Ty Cobb, and having labeled himself the Ty Cobb of the Federal League. Somehow or another, somebody had the bright idea to have the two of them together, and it's a good picture. But you can see that Cobb is significantly bigger than Benny Kauff, like maybe 5 inches taller.
My Benny Kauff Holy Grail is that picture, a Type 1 copy of that picture. Always looking for it. There was a Type 2 that came up. I think it was in the Robert Edwards auction a couple auctions ago, when I almost bid on it, but I was like, I'm going to hold out for the Type 1. Actually, the magazine that picture was used on the cover on has been on eBay forever. Still there. I checked this morning. I think it's Sporting Life, if I'm not mistaken. But it's pretty faded and pretty rough condition. But still, just like the picture itself is cool, because just they're, like you said, they're together, they're shaking hands. He's just so much smaller. It's really odd looking.
Well, it's it's a tough thing to collect because you're up against Cobb collectors.
Yeah, true.
You might
True.
be you might be the only one, other than me, who would say that, oh, that's a cool picture. I want that for my Kauff collection.
Yeah, probably so.
You're up against some real money. Those Cobb collectors. So yeah, this is your Cracker Jack, which again, the red is fantastic. It presents really nicely. And yeah, it's a 1, but who cares if it's a 1? It's a Cracker Jack. It's gonna have some staining on it.
Yeah, I mean it's let me see if my camera can.
Let me get
Yes,
it.
I mean it's super. It presents really well. The color's good. I mean it's a great looking card. I don't know if you. Let me think my zoom here. You can't really see it. There's a mark on the top of it. There's a you can kind of see it on this picture here.
Yeah.
There's a black stain at the top. But I mean, other than that, I mean, without the stain, I don't know. It'd be probably definitely graded higher. But for me, like we were saying earlier, I don't really care about the grade. It looks great. So that was great for me.
Yep. And the one on the right. So the M1014 and M1015s are, I like the cards. A lot of my other hobby friends like these cards. They're small.
Yeah.
I think they're maybe a little bigger than like the T206 size, but they've got these nice black and white photos and a whole variety of different backs. And this is the Sporting News back.
Yeah, and I think for these, as you were talking about the trading card database and what's available, this is the biggest lot of kind of stuff that's still out there, I think, to get probably for both of us, just because there are so many back variations of this that you can probably get a good chunk of this same image, but you're going to get all kinds of different backs.
Yeah, we'll see them before, but there's I think somebody said there's 19 different backs in the M1014 and the M1015. I'm not sure how many he has that are known, and we'll find out in a little bit. But there's stuff like Indianapolis Brewing and Boston Store, which I think we'll get to. Oh no, there's the Fleischmann. So I went in chronological order. So the good thing about the Fleischmann is that it's a 16, so it's his third year. I think we kind of already went over it, but there were 3 of these in the PSA entire population, 3 of the Fleischmann Benny Kauff, but none with no tab, with the tab.
Yeah. I've never seen one with a tab.
Well, purportedly one in an SGC holder somewhere, so maybe it'll pop up.
I will say this is the biggest flyer I've taken on probably in a while. I bought this raw online.
Wow.
So there was a lot of I basically just was okay. Well, I can live without the money, I guess. But no, the guy I tried to do my due diligence. He had a lot of them. It was not a lot. He had like 10 that he had for sale. So I mean, I messaged the guy and kind of went back and forth with him a little bit, wanting to know, hey, where'd you get these? He spun a story that could have been untrue, but what sounded true enough that I was open to paying him for it.
Right.
And he kind of basically, we tried to price negotiate a little bit, but he pretty much said, look, this is what it cost, and you can wait for another one if you want to. And I was like, I don't really want to, so we'll just go ahead and do it. But yeah, so bought it raw, graded it myself. And like you said, it's a 1.5, but there's just not that many of them. And the visual aid I was talking about, I went broke out the Bible here, classic baseball cards.
Yes.
And I was looking at the Fleischmann bread. Let me get in camera here. Page here where they've got they got pictures of all the cards and all that stuff. He's not even in here. So like that's how. So whenever this book was published, they didn't even have a picture of it. So that's one thing that I thought was cool about this is as of whenever this came out, 1991 or whatever it was, they didn't even have an example of this. So I always thought that was pretty cool.
So when you say the guy who had the raw examples had 10, he didn't have 10 Kauff, right? He had 10.
No, he had just 10 assorted ones. They were all nobody big. I mean, it was just kind of, common people from the set, but I mean, it's not a huge set anyway. But yeah, I think he originally had 10. He had sold a couple of them, and I think he had like 3 or 4 left, this being one of them. But yeah, the story that he told was basically that he got them. A guy had them forever. They were in an attic in a shoebox, basically tied up with some string. And the family, I guess, after the guy had died, they were cleaning it out, found them. He bought them directly from them. And he said originally it had been a lot more than that. I think he said there had been like 30 or something like that originally. And he had just kind of over time sold most of them off.
Literally an attic find.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wish my friend Mike, who does the Attic Find Fridays, would know that story. Maybe you can put him in touch with it. There's the Boston store, which is it's not listed as an M101 4 or 5 on the label.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure it is, right?
I think. I mean, there. You know how PSA is with labels. Stuff just kind of goes different ways, but yeah. I mean, I know the Boston store specifically. I've seen others of it pretty regularly. I know there's been one on eBay for a PSA 8 that I see from time to time. But again, I mean, just like a good picture. This one obviously out of Federal League time into more, when he was playing for New York. But
yep. And then the Collins McCarthy, which we saw. I mean, I don't know why that's an A. It looks pretty good to me. The centering is really nice.
I'm assuming it's trimmed, if I had to guess. But again, I don't really care. I just wanted a copy of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's an authentic card, and that's grading companies started out to be authenticators, so then they started putting numbers on. So there's the 514, which, like you said, it's got the nice bright red on it, which we saw up close. Terrific card. When did you get this one?
So the 514, same as you. That was my first card that I got. That was another one, almost same thing. I bought it. That one, you can find that one. It's on eBay a lot. I bought that one raw off eBay, graded it myself. But that was my first Kauff purchase. So that was probably 4-ish years ago now, I guess, somewhere along in there.
Yeah. To get a number grade from SGC is a little easier on these hand cuts. For you to put this in and get a 2 from PSA is actually quite a feat, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it was in great condition. I mean, like I said, I bought it off eBay, so I could zoom in, kind of see it. I was like, well, it looks good to me. But then when I got it in hand, I was like, okay, well, it's obviously in good. If it hasn't been trimmed in any way or colored, which I'm by no means like a raw card expert, so that's a little dicey for me to predict. But I mean, I was like, if it hasn't been altered, like it's in great condition, I think it will. But it was kind of a toss up.
And so 1920, which is the last card on the right, is the last year that he would have cards, because 1920 is the year that he was banned for life.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I don't know if you looked at the pop on that. I think that pop on that card is lower than the Fleshman Bakery. I think it's like 4 or 5 across SGC and PSA. Wow. I know that's the only PSA one that's got a number. There's maybe a couple others that are authentic. I think most of the ones in SGC are authentic. There is one higher, though. I think it's a 1.5. But yeah, that was one that and too, I always like on these that like you can see on that one like his name spelled wrong. It's only got one F. But that was one that I just it popped up on. I looked into it, saw the pop was super low and picked it up. And again, talking about the affordability, I think I paid $50 for that.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was. I'm going off of memory. I think it was on bid, and I think the starting bid was $50. And I don't think anybody else did, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, so it was just one that nobody else. I mean, like you said, there's not a lot of us out there, and I guess nobody else saw that one. So yeah.
I actually do not have a saved Benny Kauff search, but I do occasionally just pull the name up, and most of the stuff that I'm buying in terms of like teens and 20s cards are coming from auction houses anyway, so that's where I would see them.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hit on much often. A lot of it's later stuff, non-playing days, like common collection, stuff like that. We'll hit on it, but every once in a while, somebody will post. We'll post one that's interesting. And yeah, same for me. Like I check every auction that I pay attention to. I'm usually checking for stuff. I don't think I've bought any of his cards from an auction house so far. I think all of my stuff's been off eBay, but I'm sure I'll hit on one there.
Well, I'm glad you didn't outbid me on the Fleischmann because I got a pretty good deal.
Me too. I mean, I didn't need enough. I think one's enough.
The Collins McCarthy was auction house. This was at a show, and the other one. Actually, this was graded by me, but it was originally purchased from an auction house. So, so that's our last slide. I guess the good thing about doing a Benny Kauff show is that there aren't that many cards. So.
Yeah, and I mean that's again part of the thing that I really like about it is just it's difficult to find stuff. So I like the hunt. I like stuff to be harder to come across. And because I think that limits the amount of money that I'll end up spending. Because if everything's available, I'll want to just buy everything at once. Whereas if it's more of a spread out thing, it gives me a little time to save in between. So
we, whoops, I'm going to do the thing where I share my screen and pull up the trading card database. Then no, I have to pull that out. See, I messed this up when we were starting out too, so I got to remove that. I'm screwing up. What am I doing here? There we go. All right, so let me try this again. Did it happen? Yes.
There we go.
There we go. So this is the paper I was talking about, the Police Gazette, which is 1901 to 1917. They date publications for 16 and 17. So that makes the Cracker Jack pretty clearly his rookie. There's a pin, 15, 16. There's Ferguson Bakery, pennants, which we didn't talk about. Talked about Ferguson Bakery because they have similar cards to the Fleischmann. It's just like some of the what the hell is this thing on the right? Crazy. But Ferguson also had pennants, so he's in the pennants. There's Fleischmann. There's the Globe clothing, Morehouse Baking, Sporting News, which you had. There's a M1014 Sporting News, M1015 Sporting News. And then there's Standard Biscuit, Wild Baking. So these are all Boston Store. Those are all M1014 and M1015 backs that are available. There's the Collins McCarthy, Standard Biscuit, Whale Baking 17, Sporting News that doesn't have a set 20. I think that's the from the actual newspaper.
Yeah.
There's the 514, the 516. Apparently, there's the 520 that you have. There's a Wholesome Bread. Now, I have a Wholesome Bread card of another player, but I don't have Kauff, and I don't know if anybody has it because it's blank. There's literally no picture of it. If we see that card, we're going to have to communicate and make sure we don't bid over each other. And then there's a bunch of post-playing day stuff. So, not that much, but there's still, there are still options. There we go. Back to you and me. I didn't do too bad on that.
No, that was good. But yeah, I think, there's like you said, a lot of that stuff too is just, it's not going to show up very often. So it's a little bit more difficult to, put hands on just because, some of those off backs that, a lot of those backs that were shown there, like, I don't know that I've seen too many cards in general with those. So the idea that, somebody that would probably be considered a common player of that set, they're probably just going to be extremely hard to find.
No question about it. But, one of the things is when you have I'm not doing this in my collection as much as I'm just sort of as it presents itself. One card from every set that I can find. So this is the only flight that I have. I have a couple of Collins McCarthy cards, but Kauff presents that as a positive alternative to buying like a Ty Cobb from a set that you don't see. You can buy a guy like Benny Kauff and put him in your Kauff collection, and now you have a card from that set. So we'll see if that's what happens with the M101s. I'm certainly going to be shopping for them, and like I said, hopefully you and I won't bid against each other.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll sync up on that.
All right. So, Trae, I really appreciate you coming on and talking. I appreciate you reaching out to me. And I enjoyed watching, looking through your cards and doing some research and having some fun with a player who's generally not very well known, but is, once you do know him, you know that he's worth looking into, worth collecting. So I appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. This has been great.
Okay. So, viewers, next week we will have, I think this will be, this will air early April. And so we're going to be doing a lot of Strongsville stuff after this. So viewers, appreciate you tuning in. Tune back in. Going to be a lot of stuff coming on the channel. So take it easy.